Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of Willie Meyer. Willie, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Peter, thank you very much. Great to be with you.
Now, before we get started, let's take a look at today's trivia question. In 1995, Pieter Hendricks scored South Africa's first try at the Rugby World Cup. Who scored the Springboks' second try of the tournament? Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below, and we'll also find out if Willie knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Willie, I want to begin our chat in 1995, as it turns out. You were actually on the end-of-year tour for the Springboks to Italy and England. You were actually on the bench as well. How frustrating did you find it that you didn't actually get a chance to play at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, obvious being included in the Springbok side or a Springbok group, your biggest wish is to go onto the field. It was a short tour. The guys came fresh out of the World Cup, did well in the World Cup. So I didn't expect much of playing in one of those tests. But I think it was a great experience touring with the guys, especially directly after World Cup and the guys that won the World Cup in '95. So yeah, I mean, I think you got back after that. I got back after that tour, maybe more motivated. To say, but I want to pull the jersey over my head. And the year after that, we were selected for the SAA side. I mean, we can talk about that touring group. And then it came in 1997, my debut for the Springboks, yes.
1997. It was almost a month after your 30th birthday, actually, against Scotland at Murrayfield. Describe to us what it felt like running onto the field for the first time as a Springbok in a test match.
Yeah, I mean, I did wait quite a while to become a Springbok. Obviously, starting off in the Eastern Province, played about 105 matches for Eastern Province before I moved up to Free State. And I think it was always a great honor to wear the green and gold. Special moment. Very excited to go onto the field. And I think it's a great experience. I think the biggest thing is before this match, when you're standing there in front of the whole crowd, seeing the anthem. So, but yeah, definitely a very, very great experience to run onto the field to become a Springbok.
As I mentioned, it was a month after you turned 30. Do you think that you appreciated it a little bit more because you were a bit older?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously played for about 7 years of my total career of 14 years. I did play provincial rugby. I've played with Eastern Province. At that time, there was not a lot of players that became Springboks out of Eastern Province. You do have a few of them that did become Springboks. I think definitely to become Springbok at age 30 was still a big honor for me and definitely for career highlight.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? It's my dream, guys, to do this full time, and with a small financial contribution, you can help me realize that dream. The link and the QR code is appearing on your screen right now, and I'll also put it down in the description area for you to go and click on at a later stage if you would like to do so. And by becoming a patron, I promise there will be great benefits for members. Now let's get back to the interview. And then you had to wait until 1999 for your next test cap. What actually happened there?
Yeah, I think at the time the other props that I was competing against were quite good. I mean, my direct opposition for that time were guys like Adrian Garvey that also went to the World Cup. So I think there were quite a Kobus Versaghi, obviously, were more or less in the same time as that. And so I think competition were quite tough. And so I went on a few tours. Didn't play that much test matches during that time. Played a few midweek games. But yeah, no, it's obvious. The wait feels extra long when you want to play and you can't get an opportunity to play for the Springboks. But yeah, it was worth the wait.
And then staying in 1999, you went on the Tri-Nations tour to Australia and New Zealand. And unfortunately for us, we suffered two hidings against the Wallabies and the All Blacks on that tour. What would you say the atmosphere was like in the Springbok camp at that stage?
Yeah, I think that was the same tour. I've got concussed, try tackle Jonah Lomo. So my excuse might be that I only remember half of the tour. But yeah, at the time, it was always tough to tour in New Zealand. I think touring for South African side, and especially doing Super 10, 12, 15 at that time, it was still quite a new thing for South Africa to tour, and especially going abroad for long times. And with the All Blacks, and especially the Aussies being on top of the game at that time, especially the Aussies with Super 12, 15 had good sides, and they were quite a tough nut to crack, even in Australia, same as the All Blacks. So, yeah, it's not nice to go and tour and come back without any wins. And so, yeah, it's not nice, definitely not.
How disappointed were you to miss out on the 1999 World Cup?
I think any guy that played for the Springboks wants to be part of a World Cup. Afterwards, if I think back about it, and I think 99 wasn't a good World Cup for the Springboks, so it was just another World Cup. And I think that the guys that actually is going to World Cup wants to be a World Cup winner. So I think the World Cups we will always remember is those that we return with the cup. So a bit disappointed. I remember we were sitting, and I think it was somewhere up in Johannesburg when they announced the site, and Heineke Meyer were still part of the coaching staff, and Nick Mallett came up and announcing the team and actually telling me, Meyer, that you're not going to World Cup. And so I replied by asking him, is it myself or Heineke Meyer that's not going? So we actually put it in a bit of a lighter light, and Charles Marie likes to always remember me of what I said about who's going to World Cup, myself or Heineke. But yeah, I was disappointed at the time, and but yeah, you go through that and just keep on going with your career.
And then in 2000, you were very much part of the setup, playing in many of the test matches that year, including a memorable win over the All Blacks at Ellis Park. I know that you actually came off the bench in that test match, but how memorable was it to be part of an occasion like that?
Yeah, I mean, obvious to win against the All Blacks, and especially in front of your own crowd. I was playing for the Lions at that time. Yeah, they were the Lions at that time already. And so, yeah, obviously a big occasion. Any test that you can win against the All Blacks will always be a highlight for every rugby player.
So, Willie, after the Tri-Nations that year, Nick Mallett was out as Springbok coach. What can you tell us about him as a coach, as you experienced him?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the Springbok coaches in our time that had a very good knowledge of rugby, technical wise. So he knows the game. I think I've played under coaches at that time, the Alex Wileys and the Rory Mainses, that coaches in South Africa. They were tough coaches. I mean, hard coaches, maybe not always technical that good as Nick Mallett. So I think Nick was a very good combination of a guy that could technical analyzes games, and so yeah, definitely one of the better coaches that I've played under in my career.
And he was replaced by Harry Viljoen. What can you tell us about Harry as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, Harry also total different coach as from Nick Mallett. He brought in quite a few other coaches into the group, like defensive coaches coming from Australia. He had backline coach from Australia. So he brought in people from other countries as well to get involved in the Springbok squad, more or less what this Rassie is doing nowadays. I think it was a bit before his time. I think he would quite fit into to modern rugby that's happening nowadays. So I think he was a bit, I wouldn't say he was still a good coach at the time, but I think he would be a better fit if he was coaching nowadays. But if I must choose between the two of them, I'll go Nick Mallett as the better coach of the two, technical-wise.
Willie, I think it's fair to say that in that 2000-2001 period, the Springboks were actually playing fairly well, but we weren't necessarily getting the results that merited our performances. Why do you think that was?
Yeah, actually difficult to say. I think there was definitely a few youngsters that came through at that time, especially thinking about what happened to Dave van Zyl and Gaffie de Toey in Christchurch or in Eden. I think the test was in Dunedin. So I think there was a few players that came through that actually became brilliant players later on in their careers. Difficult to say. Yeah, difficult to say. I think maybe not the right combinations, maybe all the time. There was quite a few coaches that they changed over that period. But yeah, difficult to say. I think overall, most of those players end off their careers as quite big names in Springbok rugby, or certainly big names, but maybe as a combination it didn't work. So yeah, I can't actually tell why we weren't winning more at the time. So yeah.
So, Willie, you went on your first end-of-year tour in 1995 with the Springboks. The sport had just turned professional at that stage. So you could say that most of the guys were still amateurs and getting used to becoming professionals. But by 2001, the game was properly professional. You guys were being paid decent money, and there were many other things that had changed as well. What can you tell us about the differences between, say, 1995 and 2001 in terms of the way that things had evolved?
Yeah, I mean, talks actually started after 1995 World Cup. There will be a possibility that rugby can change professional. And what I always say to friends is that there was always money in rugby. Even if you've got, like in the old Eastern Province days, you've got your envelope, and that was anything between 50 Rand and 900 Rand for a game, still playing EPB and for Eastern Province at that time. So even in the amateur era, there was money involved, obviously not big money. So yeah, it was quite a thing for us, starting to signing contracts after 1995, 96 actually were the first year. And if you look at the amount that we've signed for big money at the time, nowadays it's like spending money for a weekend in Cape Town. And yeah, and if you see what happened during this time from 95 up to now, I think what I do always say is that there's less players maybe that's earning money now out of rugby in South Africa especially, but the guys are earning bigger money. So when the professional rugby started off, all the provinces were paying players, and yeah, I think with current conditions and smaller unions that went bankrupt due to professional era or whatever happened to their management. Yeah, so I think more players were getting something out of rugby at that time. Nowadays, maybe a bit less players, but obviously the guys are earning big money. And I think that's great because you can't actually decide how long your career will be. So I think it's a high-risk business to be in. So yeah, do pay the guys. I mean, nobody can tell how long your career will last. And so while the guys are there and on the field and play, I'm very positive towards a professional era for rugby players.
Willie, I've got another important question for you. I've had 80 Springboks on this show over the last year and a half or so, and some of them have told me a little bit about you. They told me that you were one of the funnier guys in the squad. So I'm very curious, Willie, why would they say something like that?
I think it's my looks. No, I don't like to crack a joke. I like to laugh. I think it's laughing is always good for somebody. It's one of the few things that cost nothing. So yeah, I think that is it's just the way I grew up, and yeah, always like to crack a joke. So, but I don't know why.
And nothing wrong with that at all. So Rudolf Straeuli then took over as the new Springbok coach in 2002, and this is actually a similar question to what I asked you a little bit earlier. We saw there were some good performances, especially at the start of the tenure when we had those victories over Wales and then Samoa and Argentina, and then in the Tri-Nations, even though we weren't winning, we were getting good performances from the boys. What would you say the atmosphere was like in the Bok camp at that stage?
Yeah, I think with Rudolf, when I stopped playing in 2002, the end of 2002, I've ended my career. And Rudolf started coaching in 2002. Yeah. So I did had it 1 year. Actually, he was my first roommate on that end of the year tour in 1995. He was my roommate on that tour. So yeah, I mean, obvious after Harry, complete different coaching style, complete atmosphere in the camp changed a bit. And yeah, I mean, I only had him for a year. Unfortunately, I had a neck operation after the test. I came back from Marseille. Actually went back there last year to go and watch the test against the Springboks, 2 years back, the year before World Cup. And so unfortunately I only had a 1 year playing under him, and stopped playing rugby end of 2002.
And we're going to stay in 2002 because there was a test match we were playing in Durban against the All Blacks. You were involved in that one. There was a crazy fan named Piet Van Zyl that ran onto the field and tackled the referee. What was going through your mind when you saw that?
Yeah, actually we were busy with a scrum at that time. And the next moment, AJ Venter was the flank on my side, and the scrum was actually busy with the scrum already when a little brawl started here on my right hand side. And what I did see when I lifted my head, it was a very good shot by AJ Venter, and I think that was a proper shot for Piet. And then a bit of chaos after that. Couldn't understand what was happening, and then we realized, but this is actually a spectator here trying to attack the referee, and a bit of a mix-up. And all credit to AJ. I think if he did give him a good shot, and that was actually quite funny. I don't think he will try to repeat it again.
I've actually had AJ on the show as well, and he was very happy to share with us that moment when Piet ran onto the field and the chaos, as you say, that ensued. The following week, we played against the Wallabies at Ellis Park, and we won that match in dramatic fashion. Van der Greef scored a try right at the end. How special was that moment?
Yeah, always. I mean, especially your Tri-Nation test matches was always a big thing, and especially to win against Australia once again was a good thing. Once again, we were playing against them at Ellis Park, where I actually played my provincial rugby at the time. So I think it was always a highlight to win at Ellis Park for me. I mean, I've spent about 5 years with the Lions, 5 very good years, obvious the wrong side of the 50s, but most probably playing my best rugby in that time. It was always good to play on Ellis Park, and especially a win against the Aussies. Always a good thing. You can play them actually anywhere as long as you win them. It's a good feeling. So it was good.
And I think we'd all agree with that, Willie. After that, we went on the end of year tour, which you mentioned a little bit earlier, in Marseille against France. Disappointing defeat, and that was also your last test match for the Boks, and you mentioned the injury there as well. How disappointing was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, the plan was actually to stop my career the year prior to that 2002 season. And obvious with World Cup coming up and tighted props, not that many at a time. Everybody asked, or not everybody, the union asked, and if I will be prepared to play for another year. So at that time it was very disappointed. Coming back with injury, it was actually John de Villiers' debut, and he also got injured on debut, and we actually flew back together. And then after seeing a few doctors in South Africa and at my age, I decided rather to call it a day and stop playing or stop my career. And if I look back today, and I especially going back to the 2003 World Cup with the Kamstaldraad and all that negatives that happened before 2003 World Cup, I was actually glad that I did retire. I think if I could manage to be in a World Cup side that time and make the side for 2003, that would be nice. But I think the Kamstaldraad could be a bit of a bad exit out of rugby for a player that was actually almost ending his career. So yeah, the injury bad, but yeah, I did understand afterwards.
I've had Corne Krige on the show as well, and he told me that quite literally there were bullets flying over the guy's head. So you dodged a bullet in that one, or in that sense, Willie.
Yeah.
Willie, let me ask you this. So given the way that your career panned out, you missed out on the 1995 Rugby World Cup. You missed out on the 1998 Tri-Nations. You missed out on the 1999 Rugby World Cup. And perhaps in another scenario, you could have missed out on the 2003 World Cup and even the 2004 Tri-Nations. There's a lot of trophies there and a lot of accolades that you may have been able to be part of in an alternative scenario. Do you have any regrets?
I will tell friends, I said in 1995 I wasn't good enough. In the next one I was unlucky, and the other one I was injured. So so that was the three reasons I will give friends. But no, I think every career there's ups and there's downs, and I think I was just every time I was more than happy just to be included in the sides I was selected for. And as I mentioned earlier, I think there was coming from Bali Swart Marius that there was quite a in that period, there was really good prop forwards that I was competing against, and so yeah, your boss is always somewhere outside, and sometimes I was the boss, and other times they were in charge. So no, I was happy, and I ended off my career with 26 test matches. So I'm more than happy with that. Yeah, especially after starting off in 1995 on tour without any matches, and then yeah, so I was, if I look back on my career, obviously you want to play 50 and 100 tests. I think that's everybody's dream to play that amount of matches. I don't know how the bodies is going to feel after 100 test matches, but no, so I think in overall I'm happy with my career. I did met great people during this time, played against great players. So yeah, no, I'm quite happy with what happened.
So who was your toughest opponent?
I do get that question quite a bit. Or in the past, I think John Krenka. It was French prop forward. We actually propped against each other in the last test I played as well. The few played, I think, another game or two against him. And Carl Hoft from New Zealand. I think that's the type of props that tighted props get cross if somebody drops a ball, and there must be another scrum. So yeah, quite tough. They kept you busy for 80 minutes. So it was, you really had to focus to be the upper, to get an upper hand against those two. But yeah, I think South Africa as well, there's obviously the runs and the France Erasmuses when I was still a young guy. So I think tighted prop is quite a trait. So obvious at young age you will get hammered, and you will get hammered enough. I've started off with Eastern Province, and my first game, I was selected on a loosehead side, and I was my first prop I've played it on provincial level, 20 years old, and I propped against Jan Locke at the time. So I did understand a few new boxing techniques as well after that. So it was quite tough as well. So yeah, I think up to a certain age, it is actually a big learning curve to handle all the different props that you props again.
Is there a current player that you admire, Willie?
Yeah, definitely. I think Frans Malherbe is a good prop. He's a brilliant scrummer. He's getting around the field. He's making tackles. He's making turnovers. So he's involved for prop forward. He's very much involved in a game, and maybe the best tight head prop currently in the world. And then obvious Ox on the other side. I mean, his whole scrum performance during the World Cups, I mean, that was tremendous. I think he was a very big positive coming out of World Cup, and was one of the reasons that we could lift the cup after World Cup.
Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time with the Springboks?
No, I think I can. What I did remember, that actually coming out of it was on the SAA side that we played against the French students, and Kleine Otto were the lock, and obviously at that time the French, when the cleanest of players, always be ready for a fight, and Kleine had quite a active little lock that played against him. So every line out he was trying to hit him, and obviously shoulder him, and in the scrums he wants to hit Kleine, and at one stage in the line out, Kleine looked around and he saw me, and he said, "Oh hell, we've got a little Audrey Gelnes playing against us today." So yeah, but there was heaps of funny moments, and especially on club level and provincial level. I mean, there's always stories, and but it was good fun.
Willie, what are you up to these days?
Involved in agriculture. I'm working for a company, BKB, doing livestock auctions and stud breed auctions. So I'm actually based in Port Elizabeth, as our head office is in Port Elizabeth. So, and I'm responsible for the southern part of South Africa for BKB in auctions, livestock auctions. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and so we're actually trading livestock. So yeah, that's what I did before I actually started playing rugby full time. And yeah, 2 years before I've stopped playing, I actually was asked if I will go back into that kind of business, and I've joined another company at that time. And yeah, that is, I think, 25 years but no, 22 years back, and still involved. Yeah.
That's really cool. Willie, I must ask you now, because obviously what you're doing, there's quite a lot of public interaction. When you meet guys, do you get that, "Oh, this is cool, it's Willie Meyer, I remember you"? Does any of that sort of thing take place?
Yeah, young guys, it's becoming less, but more or less the guys about 10 years younger and between 10 years younger and 10 years older do recognize you still all the time. I think I've got the fact that I always played with a little bokpaartjie goatee, make it maybe a bit difficult to recognize. But yeah, obviously they can see on the ears, and guys will always come up and say, "What is your name again?" So yeah, still all the time, and so they do, but definitely less than like 10 years back, or when I was still looking like a old rugby player.
Willie, you'll actually like this. I interviewed David Kirk, the All Blacks captain that won the 1987 Rugby World Cup, and I asked him something similar about how he is revered in New Zealand, and he said, yeah, the older guys like him and know him and remember him, but he said the younger guys, they don't know so much.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But obviously when they hear your name and said they all remember the name and stuff. Yeah, but it's actually good. Now I can misbehave myself. I don't have to be you behave the whole time. So yeah, it's not too bad if they don't recognize you.
No, that's great. Willie, let's finish off by looking at that trivia question again quickly. In 1995, Pieter Hendricks scored South Africa's first try at the Rugby World Cup. Who scored the Springboks' second try of the tournament? Do you know the answer, Willie?
Mark Andrews.
Oh, that's not a bad guess, because the try did actually come as a result of a scrum, but it was Joel Stransky that crossed the line for us.
It was between Mark Andrews and Japie Mulder I've got in mind, but no, it was I couldn't. When you first asked the question, I knew I won't make it.
That's great. Willie, let me say that it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today. So nice to listen to those old stories. An absolute pleasure. And I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Yeah, great, Peter. And keep on. I think it's a nice program. I did have a look at your podcast and your stuff. It's very nice, and I think the guys will enjoy it. Thank you very much. Great.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, Wayne Fivey was my guest. You can go and watch that video. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, Nick Mallett will be here.